My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm Cloud Hired.
I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glowcloud team.
Welcome everyone. My name is Michael Gibbs and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I'm here to help you build your technology career. Maybe your goal is that you want to become a cloud architect or a solutions architect or an enterprise architect or an AI architect. Well, I'm here to help you get to your goal much faster. I've been working as an IT architect now for over 25 years, network architect, cloud architect, enterprise architect, business architect, you name it. If it's an architecture role, I've done it. And I've spent more than 2 decades helping people just like you get your first tech job, get promoted in tech, and I want to help you by guiding you to your goals. See, if we know where we're going and we've got a great roadmap, it's so easy to get there. But if we don't know where to go or how to get there, we zigzag in our career. We try this, we try this, we try this, and then we end up learning from our mistakes, as opposed to just going to point A to point B as if you knew how to get there in the first place. So come bring us your career questions, and we are here to help you. Before we begin our discussion, there's some free things that I have for you that I want to tell you about to help you in your technology career. I would like to tell you about our free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp that's coming very, very soon. And it starts next Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I have 3 Cisco certified internet experts and a CCNP as well as teaching the course, network engineers and architects with over 60 years experience, and it's all free. So please join us on the free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp coming right for you on this channel. So if you're not a member, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified, and you'll be notified when that free networking bootcamp comes. But please sign up for the forum. There's lots of things we want to give you to make sure you're maximally successful. I also wanted to tell you that tomorrow we're going to have our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And the point is I work with people to become cloud architects every day. I have people that I've trained that are working as cloud architects at Apple, at Amazon, and Cisco, and IBM, and Microsoft, and Google, and Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase, British Broadcasting Company, and so many other places. And the reason we got them there is we trained them to be architects. And the point is most people think the architect and the engineer are similar, but they're completely not. And so many times, so many people learn the wrong skills. They want to be a cloud architect or a solution architect, and they learn the wrong skills. And when it comes to that interview, and someone asks them how to design something, or asks them to give a presentation, or ask them about some business things, the people don't get hired. And I want you to get that best cloud architect job, whether we train you or you go to school and you learn it. I just want you to get there. So come to this free webinar. And this webinar will go over the role, we'll go over what we do, we'll go over what hiring managers want, we'll go over the skills for their role, and then we'll be able to talk to you for upwards of 90 minutes face-to-face on Zoom, answer any questions you have. So join us, it's completely free. And while you're at it, if you want to be a cloud architect, or a solutions architect, we have a completely free career guide that we wrote for you that is in the description of this video. So download some of these free resources. They'll be in the chat box. They'll be in the description of this video. Lots of things to help you with your career, and all completely free. Alonzo, it's so good to see you. So now we are joined by Alonzo. Alonzo is not only a good friend, he's a fantastic cloud architect. He's also our chief marketing officer. So Alonzo, welcome, and I'm so happy you're here. Alonzo, you are muted.
We're muted still? Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, everyone, I'm glad to be here with my friend Mike and the rest of the Go Cloud Careers team. It's always a good thing to help you all get to your Go Cloud, or rather your cloud career architect goals, whether it be generative AI, enterprise, and so forth. So I'm ready to hear your questions. Let's get going. All right. So what do we have here from Cloud Station? Always has some great questions. How important is networking in the cloud computing industry, and what strategies do you use to build professional connections?
Okay, Cloud Station. So let's talk networking. Both the networking things like in the technology space matters. Things like routers and switches and wide area connections and routing protocols such as BGP. But I don't actually think that's the networking you're actually referring to. I think you're talking about people networking, which is another kind of networking, which is great. How important is networking? It's pretty important, because in the end, you're as strong as your network. But let's talk about real networking versus what I hear about. Real networking is when you go out there and you meet people and you develop a meaningful relationship with them, where you get to know them and they get to know you, and they will do things for you and you will do things for them. And it's better to have 30 people that are real people that are like that in your network than 30,000 followers that don't know your name. So networking matters. You're only as good as the strengths of your connections and your relationships. And the stronger your connections and relationships are, the better you will be. So networking is very important. But networking is not just about, the content you create. And I'll talk about content creation and social media networking because it's still good and it's very important and it's very valuable. You can post any message you want, but if you don't deliver on the things that you say, it's just fake marketing. It's like a box with a beautiful bow on it and it's empty inside. So I just want to make sure that your brand and everything is not just what you post out there. It's not just a marketing message. It's also your actions, how you treat people. Do you deliver on what you say? Do you deliver on your promises? That kind of thing. So now that we got that out of the way, because we need to make sure that we've got a consistent brand. After all, if somebody made a horrible car, but they made it look good on the commercials, that would be found out real quick. So we're just talking about authenticity. So now, how do you build a brand? Well, I create connections. So personally, I like to reach out to other people, and I like to create things myself. I had to get rid of the title Cloud Architect on my resume, because as soon as I put it out there in my LinkedIn profile, every time I tried to make a LinkedIn post, I was getting 10 recruiters reaching out to me to say, are you looking for a new job? But the point is, creating good content will have people come over to you. But good content is not written by ChatGPT.
No.
Good content isn't like repurposing somebody else's marketing message. Hey, look how exciting this new feature is from this new cloud providers. Again, you're kind of in one of those things. Now you become a fanboy or a fangirl as opposed to the trusted advisor. So creating something that shows you, that shows your strengths, that shows your capabilities, and that shows why you're special is really good. I also like to, if I see someone that I really like and respect, I'll leave a comment on their work. For example, David Lithicum. We had a lot of comments on each other's things for a long period of time. We had a lot of respect for each other's content. And, and when I'd see content like that, I would actually, write a response and write some comments because I really liked it. And, after looking at someone's comments for a period of time and responding to theirs and them responding to yours, I often send a connection request. And in that connection request, I put, I'm fond of something you've done for X, Y, Z reason. I talk about what it is. They accept the connection. And I continue to leave good feedback and good comment. And truthfully, I offer to help that person in some way, shape, or form long before I ever ask for a favor. So that's the key. It's about authenticity and networking. So leverage your content, create content, comment on other people's comment. Start having a dialogue over direct messaging, but don't do this Every single day I get a connection request and 5 minutes later, I want a job. Well, can't hire that one. Or the person that sends me a connection request and 10 minutes later, I want to sell you something. That shows me that person doesn't have the social skills, they don't have the social graces, and they don't know how to sell. So, I mean, I'm not going to buy from someone that does that because they're proving to me they can't help me by their lack of skill in these things. So go out there, build a relationship just like you would a real relationship. And go out there to conferences. And when you go to conferences, have a good dialogue with people. Go to industry events and have a good dialogue with people. And call them on the phone. Really cultivate those relationships because relationships matters. Lonzo, you have some additional context for Cloud Station?
Well, you hit the nail on the head on a few of those topics, but yeah, definitely build those relationships. Don't build requests, okay? Because normally, like Mike says, I'm opening up my LinkedIn. You see someone who's viewed your page, and then you take a look at their page, and then okay, let's take a shot in the dark and see if we accept their connection, and either they're giving me a barrage of how they're going to improve Go Cloud careers, and we have the panacea of the things that you need to be successful. And I'm like, okay, out you go, out of my connections and so forth. So it's all about building that connection. Yeah. Just like Mike says, you don't go looking for a mate and the first thing that comes out your mouth, hi, you're cute, you want to get married. Let's start building a relationship, help people to understand your value, what you bring to the table, so that they realize that you are an asset to whatever team that they have, and then things can definitely go and grow from there. Cloud Doctor, hi Mike and Alonzo. What are some common misconceptions about cloud architects that you've encountered? Now this is going to be fun.
Cloud Doctor, yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions here. The biggest misconception is people think a cloud architect is a techie like an engineer, and they couldn't be further from the truth. The architect is focused on business. The engineer is focused on the technology. To the architect, the tech is just a tool. In the same way, to a physician, a medication or a surgical procedure is just a means to alleviate a pain or suffering or a medical condition. To the pharmaceutical company, it's all, the pill is everything, because that's everything they care about. Well, to the engineer, they're focused on one technology or one methodology or how to build technology, which is great. Engineers are incredibly important. We need them. I love them. But that's their domain. That's their area of expertise. We need somebody to focus on building the tech. But we also need somebody to focus on the big picture. The saddest thing that I see in the space, Cloud Doctor, is people that have been trying to become cloud architects and solution architects. It's one of the reasons we wrote this free career guide ebook. It's the other reason I came out of retirement to create this program. And it's the other reason I do a free how to get your first cloud job webinar every week. I've had people that came to me and they learned something called SysOps, which is system maintenance and operations. They learned DevOps, which is a career of automation of software releases for the most part. And again, totally not related to architecture. They learned to code, which is how to write software. Again, nothing related to architecture. They got lots of hands-on experience in Linux, which architects don't touch Linux systems. And they got real good at their SQL queries and all these other hands-on things that engineers did. And then they learned Terraform. And then they went on an interview and they asked them about business considerations or design considerations, and they didn't know where to begin because they were training for engineering careers. And engineering careers are all about building, and architecture careers are all about designing. So, the things we do as architects are, we ask the executives of the organization, what is the vision for your business? Where do you see this business 3 months from now, 12 months from now, 5 years from now, and 20 years from now? And we need that information. It is so critical so we can design the technology systems and the people processes that will help that organization to succeed. Because we always must focus on the people, the processes, and technology. Those cloud engineers have to focus 100% on the tech. We architects have to focus on everything that goes there. So we can't afford to get too close. The next thing we architects have to do is really look at the organization's business processes. How are things done? How does the product get made? How is the service delivered? How is customer service delivered? What does that supply chain look like? What is the customer journey on the way? And all of this, we need to understand this as architects. Because if we want to move the business in another direction, we probably and most likely have to tune those business processes with that organization. And we must understand those business processes, and it's so critical because if we don't, when we implement a new technology, it will affect the way people do things. It'll affect the customer journey. It'll affect the way the employees work. It'll affect how things are made, how that supply chain operates. And if it's based upon business goals from 5 years ago versus the future, the new technology will hurt the business. So I'm going to tell you right now, most architectures are complete disasters. 50 to 70% of all cloud architectures fail.
Very true.
CIO magazine said 54%. McKinsey says around 70% of all technology projects. So most fail. And that's because the architects themselves are doing engineering and not focusing on those two. But after that, Cloud Doctor, what else are we going to be doing? Well, now that we've re-architected the business processes, now we've got to evaluate the technology. Now that means we may need to bring in a team of engineers to evaluate our clients' technology, especially if they have 3,000 or 4,000 routers and thousands of switches and tens of thousands of servers and petabytes of data. So it could take a long time for us to bring in a team to understand that client's total technology environment. And when they're going to have documents, we're going to have to learn more, especially if it's a big architecture. And then once we understand that, we're going to have to think about what the technology needs to look like to support those new business processes, to support that business goals. Most people skip this step, which is why 50 to 70% of architectures fail. But a good architect can't be touching the technology. We're far away from the technology for this reason. So there's that. Now, after we've designed this, or we've got to build a team and lead a team to design this, now we have to document it. Now we've got to go socialize that document, go schmoozing across stakeholders throughout the organization, getting their feedback, getting their buy-in. Now, once we've done all this, we've gotten the feedback, we've gotten the buy-in, and we're moving forward. Now we got to go sell this architecture and convince people to give us budget and pay for it, which means building business cases. It means lots of negotiations. It means lots of presentations, lots of documents. Now, beyond that, then we've got to also, create a statement of work, set up a governance structure, determine how we're going to respond to change, when we need to change, work on the organization's culture, which we're going to have to change, socialize and get people into the desire to goal to use the technology. So this is like a full-time job and a half. And that's why companies may have 20 architects and none of them can afford to touch the technology because we're so busy doing this thing. So when people think an engineer and an architect are the same,
no,
not. When people think you can do both at the same time, you can. You either, once you touch the tech, you ultimately become an engineer. And that's okay. We have people that can do design engineering, which are engineers which are focused on technology. But if you need digital transformation, and if you're trying to bring business benefits, the tech must be strategically aligned with the people, because the people run or drive the company. The processes, the way things get done, have to be optimized to work with the tech. And the tech has to support the business's needs, as opposed to being somebody's favorite technology just because it's cool. There are the big misconceptions, Cloud Doctor. It's a great question, which is why I gave you a pretty long answer.
Yeah, you filled in the blank. I don't think I need to add anything to that outside of, like Mike said, there's no combination, there's no unicorn of a cloud architect, super cloud engineer, ninja that is going to get the same double compensation for this type of role. There's no such thing, nor would anybody want something like that. So follow your heart, follow your path on what you want to do, and understand that cloud architects, we design, present, and sell. We're customer facing. Engineers are CLI, command line interface facing. They're focused on the code. We're focused on connections. So know those two differentiators and you're going to be great.
And if you're in the audience, please feel free to ask us your career questions. That's why we're here. We want to help you. We can't help you if you don't ask. So ask us your questions.
To and Hughes, I am not sure if what role I might want in a cloud career. Do you have suggestions on how to figure that out? Like, what are some things I should expose myself to get a better idea?
Well, To and Hughes, before you even do that, I think you need to think about what kind of a career you actually want. So, do you want a sales career where you sell stuff? Do you want to be a program manager or where you basically keep track of what others are doing and make sure they deliver things on time? Do you want to be a techie, meaning somebody that builds the technology. That means an engineer. Or do you want to be a planner, like an architect? And for the most part, we have two different kinds of careers: planning careers and doing careers. Engineering is a doing career. That engineers are going to be at their desks for the most part. Most engineers are going to be writing some kind of code. They're going to be configuring technology. They're going to be dark down in the weeds working with the tech. Their life will be working with the tech. Planning careers like architectures, we will leverage tech as a tool, but we're going to be talking to people, presenting to people, leading people, asking questions of people. So architecture careers are more people-oriented. They also pay much more. But we have to figure out what you want to do. Because even if I took you to the hospital and exposed you to everything, and you got to see like all the drugs in the hospital, pharmaceuticals, all the surgical tools that are in there, all the beds that are in there, IV pumps and every biomedical device, it's not going to tell you what you want to do. You either want to be the planner, which is the physician. You want to be the doer for the most part, which is a nurse or a physical therapist or a pharmacist. But they're planning and doing careers. So, Tune Hughes, I'm going to ask you this. What would you like to do? Do you want to be in a position where you're doing more business-oriented things and more planning? That's architecture. Do you want to not know about the tech at all, but just sell all day long? For the most part, that's sales. They know a tiny bit about tech and a whole lot about business and how to sell, which is great. Do you want to supervise others? That's project management. Do you want to build stuff that's engineering? And then the other alternative is, do you want to lead others as a manager type? And that's another option as well. So I don't think you should see the tech. I think you need to look deeply and determine what you like. Now, if you can tell me there's certain characteristics that you like. I like to lead people. I like to get my hands dirty with the tech. I like to deliver presentations. Then I can do that. I can tell you. And the point is, it's not what you're good at. It's what you want to do, because anyone can learn any skill.
Right.
So what would you like to do? How would you like to spend the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life? You tell me that and I can get you there. And I can obviously find your strengths, your hidden strengths, and tell you how to leverage them too for a competitive advantage. But I need to know what you enjoy and what you want to do.
Absolutely. And also there's either side of the coin. You're going to have a lucrative outcome. Okay. More so for cloud architecture, as Mike shared with you. However, don't let the compensation lead your career. Find out what your passion is. I know a lot of people who have tremendous jobs, well-paying jobs, obscene amount of money, but they're miserable. So they are locked into a love-hate relationship with something that they have to have because they have set forth a lifestyle for them and their families, but they don't want to do it. So they're driven by the need for the money instead of the need of being someone that's passionate about solving problems, providing solutions in a build or design scenario. So find that out about yourself, Tune Hughes, and you're going to be good to go.
Yeah, and see, Tune Hughes, I went to school for 7 years to learn internal medicine. And it's like, but I love this tech thing. And that's why I'm saying, do what you love, because you don't want to go to school for 7 years, spend $100,000 and say, well, I really wish I could have done something else. Believe me, you don't want to do that. I know from experience.
Jason. Hello, gentlemen. I struggle with this. I have a tendency to focus only on the tech as a cloud architect. What are the top 5 skills that I should focus on going forward?
Jason, this is an extremely good question. So at the end of the day, if you're an architect, the limitation of how successful you'll be is how much you know about business. Because people hire us to consult on their businesses, knowing business is probably the most critical skill outside of understanding the technology and how to put the technology together, at least in a design perspective for the architect. After that, it's going to be communication skills. Our ability to do a good job as an architect is going to be based upon our ability to go out there and ask the right questions, our ability to create a team, our ability to lead a team, our ability to verbally and written document everything we do and be able to bring the customers from where they're at to where they need to go. So communication skills will be next. Now, the next component is leadership skills. For the most part, architecture is a team sport. I mean, unless somebody does architectures only for like 2-person companies, and most 2-person companies are not going to pay $250,000 a year for a solid cloud architect. They just can't afford it. So we architects tend to work in big companies. And which one was I talking about, Alonso?
You're talking about leadership.
Yeah, leadership skills. Thank you. So, how effective are we going to be as architects, especially when we're designing architectures that typically take a team? So for me and most of the architectures I work with, I need an AI architect. I need a network architect, even though I am one, because I can't focus on the network if I'm focusing on the client success. I can only focus on leading the entire project. Then I need a security architect. Then I need an IAM architect. Then I need a big data architect. I usually have a data scientist in there somewhere along the line. I get a couple of cloud engineers and network engineers in there because they're going to do the work and they're going to make sure what we're saying is feasible for them to actually do. And they're going to be a little more technical, so they're going to support us. Probably have an application architect, might have a couple of software developers, might even have some DevOps engineers on my team. So this is the team that I typically have. So I'm going to create, and I got to go lead that team. So leadership skills. So we talked about business acumen, communication skills, and leadership skills. Sales skills. Jason, when I learned internal medicine in my youth, my preceptor gave me some of the best advice I ever had. And he said, Michael, I need you to learn sales. And I said, what do I need to learn sales? We're practicing internal medicine here. I'm not selling pharmaceuticals. And the doctor said to me, if you don't learn to sell, Michael, your patients will never do what you need them to do. And he said, Michael, I just saw you talk to someone about the need to lose 150 pounds. He said, you didn't know it, but you were selling. He said, I'd rather make you a better sales rep. You'll be more persuasive to get your patients to stop smoking, to exercise, to lose the weight they need, and take their medication. So learning sales. Guess what? When you're an architect and you need more resources, you need to sell internal management and build a business case around it. When you're an architect, some of your bonus structure at the end of the year will be based upon how much your team sold or you sold. So it's going to increase your salary a lot. And Jason, it doesn't matter how good your architectures are if your customer never adopts them because you can't sell it to them. So I would say sales. Now, I'm torn with a couple of other ones because executive presence is so important. And CXO relevancy is really critical, but I'm going to actually say emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go to my favorite, which is emotional intelligence. And here's the reason. We architects are going to be walking into clients who have disasters. People are going to be hacked. They're going to be embarrassed around all of these things. And we need to go in there with an emotionally intelligent, non-judgmental manner to get the right information so we can create the solution. If we go in there and say, you wouldn't do this, would you? And they did, they're not going to tell us. So we've got to have our emotional intelligence for that. Again, we're building and leading teams. And, our emotional intelligence determines exactly how much harmony we can create on our team and how likely we are to bring out the best in others. So emotional intelligence is probably my last one. They would be my biggest 5. I can tell you, Jason, people with those skills typically earn $100,000 or $200,000 more than the average person who's only focusing on the tech.
Yeah. Look at, and just consider this, Jason, it's all people centric. So once you know the people, you're going to know the business. Okay. Once you have an opportunity to, it's kind of like putting your ear to a safe and you're turning the knobs to understand the ticks of that business, the ticks of the leadership. And once you crack that code, they're going to be more receptive to who you are, what you bring to the table, how you communicate to them. You leave that conversation with them feeling empowered, feeling like they have an advocate in you, feeling like you're honest and you have their best interests at heart. And they're going to open the doors wide open so that you can give them exactly what you need. So overall, people skills provide those solutions by knowing the people. And it'll encompass all the 5 skills that Mike has illustrated. Cloud Doctor, how do you build a consistent brand? that in itself, answered your own question through consistency. Okay, people need it. The more you give of what people want from you consistently, the more they will trust you, the more they will respect you, the more they will empower you with better projects, the more visibility you'll get, and the more opportunities are going to be laid wide open for you, because you have set a standard not only for yourself of who you are, but the excellence you bring. So if you are known for something, or you want to be known for something, be strong enough to deliver. Okay, say what you mean what you say, work your plan your work, and be able to execute every time, every day, all the time. Okay, so if you have a certain skill, or you want to be known as a subject matter expert in something, be the best at what you want to be. Cloud security, networking, generative AI, enterprise, whatever it is, provide those solutions. Tell people how important they are to your overall goals, how teamwork and their value is going to be a consistent solution for everything that you do. That builds your brand leader as a competent person, as someone who can deliver, keeps their words, they're honest, they have integrity, and so forth. So establish what you want to be at phase one, and then maintain that every step of the way with how you act, how you respond in person, online, how you receive, especially how you receive negative comments, detractors, trolls, if you will. You never, it's like, my father says, let it, fall off you like, water off a duck's back. Let that be a determining factor to how you exemplify yourself in front of others. And even when you think people are not watching, they are. We are in the 1984 realm where big brother, big sister, whoever is watching via social media content, how you're walking out on the street, how you're delivering content, even the things that we talk about 10 years down the line, people are going to look at Mike and myself and say, okay, this is how they're presenting themselves. It's a brand, and they're doing it consistently. Be the same person that delivers on time, every time, and watch your opportunities grow and expand.
100% agree with Alonzo there. Do what you say you're going to do. Do it in the manner that you said. Treat people and the others the way you want to be treated in yourself, and deliver.
Yes. Cloud Station, can you discuss the role of mentorship in your career, and how do you approach mentoring others? That's a good question.
It's a great question, Cloud Station. So the role of mentorship is absolutely critical. There's two ways you can learn. You can try and figure it out yourself, and you make a whole lot of mistakes, and mistakes cost you time, effort, and money. That is an option. Option two is you ask somebody who's already gotten there, how'd you get there? And they create for you a list of steps. And when you have that list of steps, everything is smooth. Personally, if I wanted to go to Alonzo's house, I'd rather look at a map than just try to get in my car and figure out, where Katy, Texas is and where Alonzo's house is. I'd get his address, and I'd get a map, and I'd plot out a course before I went there. Because for me, that's what I would do. So I will tell you, early in my career, I found a mentor. As soon as I got my first networking job, I asked my manager if I could speak to the VP of architecture. My manager's like, why do you want to speak to my manager's manager? And I said I would like to speak to him because I would like to be the best architect in the entire world, and I want to know what he did to get there so I can get there myself. And my manager was kind of like, all right, Mike, go ahead and do it. And I went, and the VP told me, and I said, he gave me a list of things. He's like, here's how you rise in your architecture career. He says, everybody else is going to go focus on their hands-on certifications. They're going to keep focusing on their intro-level stuff, how to build. You want a job that's based on planning. So go learn business, go learn sales, go learn how to lead. He said, go out there and learn how to system design, how the parts work together, learn business processes. And I'm like, okay. Well, something happened. 3 months later, I was the lead architect. 2 years later, I was a principal architect. Now, my peers that I worked with that honestly had better technical skills than I did. They definitely did. My friend Raj had better technical skills. And we studied for our CCIs together. We passed them around the same time too. But, they were always focused on the how-to, and I was always focused on what can the tech could do for the customer. How does this tech help someone? How does this tech make a world better place? Not the tech itself. So the VP gave me that mentoring. I was a principal architect in 2 years. When I was at Cisco and I started mentoring people then. And when I was at Cisco, I was asked to formally mentor some people in the Associate Systems Engineering program. And what are these associate programs? Companies like Amazon and Cisco, they hire really smart people and they hire them as interns. And what they do is they pay them in the internship money to live on campus, money to be fed, and then they're there, you're a trainee. And if they do really well, they get promoted out of the internship program and they get a job. If they don't make it out of the internship program, they're terminated and they do something else in their career. So I started mentoring some people in that program. And there was a kid, his name was Carell. I remember the first time I met him, he was young, he was fresh out of school. And I remember meeting Carell and saying, Carell, and I'm like, I really like you. And I remember guiding him on what to say, what to do, how to be successful. And he left that associate engineering program. He took a global systems engineer job out of it, which was the hardest job in the company to entire get. A year later, he was a product sales specialist. The next thing I know, he's a sales executive at at Cisco. Then he was a sales executive at Google. This guy was a rock star. He was one of my first formally mentored students. And I've been mentoring for decades now, over 20 years. It's one of the things I did with Go Cloud Careers is we came up with a formal mentoring program where we could do it on a large scale. We leveraged technology, we leveraged procedures, we created a flow of things for people to do, a level of exercise, everything from mastering the interview to mastering the presentation and learning communication skills and develop them. And we do that now. We train it, we do it in a group environment, then we give people individual projects, and then we coach them on it. I think mentoring is absolutely critical. I come from medicine. In medicine, you don't just go to classes, you have a mentor. They call him a preceptor. In martial arts, where both Alonzo and I come from, you have a sensei or somebody or something like that, right? So that's where I'm totally at. I love mentoring and I think it's great. You're muted there, Alonzo.
When first joining a company as a cloud solutions architect, what does the first 30, 60, 90 days typically look like?
So what I actually asked was to figure out where, if it's at like a cloud vendor company or if it's at an end customer. So since I didn't get a response, I'm going to give you both. So let's say I join a vendor, a big vendor like Microsoft. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do in those first 30 days is go out and meet everybody. I am going to start taking people to lunch. I'm going to start having conversations with people. I'm going to start going through the organization's training that they want me to go through. There's going to be mandatory HR stuff, for example. There's going to be, then there's going to be their own terminology. They probably have their own internal architectural frameworks, which are going to be different than the public frameworks. They probably have their consulting processes. Then there's probably the here's how to eat dinner training and here's how to have lunch training. And here's the things that are socially acceptable for you to say. Here's your anti-bribery training. Here's your this kind of training. So honestly, that's going to take your first 30 days. And if you're at one of these companies, but it's critical, Michael, and during this time for you to go out there and meet people. Meet your peers first. Have them introduce you to other people and go meet people. And that's 60 days. I need you to go meet people, meet people, meet people. I need you to connect with the distinguished architects or the principal architects that exist. I need you to build some connections with the salespeople. I need you to build some connections with the management. I'm going to tell you why. They probably won't give you any architecture in your first 60 days anyway. But when you get that first big architecture, you're going to need a team. And when you need a team, you're going to have to take people from other people's teams because we are, sort of dotted line managers. We're not the manager, but we got to manage people that we borrow from somebody else's team. So that means we're going to have to justify why we need these people. But if you've got good relationships with the managers, when you reach out to them and ask for help, they'll be likely to help you. But if they don't know you, sorry, my people are dedicated to something else. You've got to go do that. And at this point, I want you to go to meetings, go to company sponsored conferences, travel to some of the offices and meet some of those people you're going to need with. It can be pretty tiring on that first 90 days if you want to do it right, because you might be jumping around on airplanes and really talking to people. By 90 days, you should start to understand the product and services better. You should start to have a contact list of who those people are that you can call. You should have relationships with all the people that you actually need. They should have actual relationships with you. You should go and be familiar with the company's standards, the company's consulting methods, the company's documentation, start and have a level of relationships. And by that point, hopefully, you're getting your first architecture project. Hopefully. You've probably gone on some calls with some other architects. You've had some meetings with the, but hopefully that's where you're going to be at in 90 days. Now that is at a product company. Now, let's say you're at an end company, like a global retailer or a global bank. This is a very different situation. If you are at a global organization, for example, now you're going to have to do something different, because now you're not going to be in a role where you're going to be doing sales. Now you're not going to have to necessarily meet as many people all over the world. So in this particular case, let's say you're at a global retailer or a global bank. You will have to, at some point, meet the C-suite if you're doing real architecture work, at least at a high enough level, because the C-suite are going to drive things. You may not be able to reach the C-suite. They may not have that level of architecture practice, and you may be too junior in your first solutions architect job or cloud architect role. But if it's a big enough role where you're going to have an impact on everything, you're going to need them. But in this particular case, first 90 days, you're going to have to meet the management that matters. Definitely the chief information officer, definitely the chief technology officer. I'm going to say directors, because in a bank, everybody's a VP, and I mentioned a bank, but a director could be a leader and a pretty significant leader. So you're going to have to meet all the directors out there. Now, when you're there and you're an end customer like a bank, you're going to have to hit the ground running. You're going to have to start looking at what their architecture repository is. You're going to have to start reading documents in the architecture repository. You're going to have to learn how that organization's technology is laid out. You're going to have to go meet those other architects. You're going to have to get to know those network architects, the security architects, the big data architects, the IAM architects, all of them, because you're going to be collaborating with them. You probably should be having some lunch, even if you pay for it yourself, with those engineers, those cloud engineers, those DevOps engineers, some of the cloud application architects. You really need to start getting people. And at this point, you're going to go to meetings. And as soon as you feel confident to do anything, volunteer for projects and be the one to take on those big projects. As soon as you feel confident, go in there. And when you take on that project, that first project, you go in there with the ferocity of a lion, but at the same time, the softness of cotton, like a cuddly teddy bear. But you go in there as if your life depended on it, and you start and you ask all the right questions. You dot every I, you cross every T, you go out there and meet people. Then you build your architecture team, and you set off your architecture meetings, and you build the team first, and you create a cohesive team, and you do those team building things. And then, because you're going to need a team and nobody knows you. Then when that team starts working, you work with that team and you take care of that team. They have a hard night, buy them drinks or take them to dinner. You're going to have to build that team. You're going to have to nurture that team. And if they need a little help along the way because they're stressed and they need a little counseling, you give them some informal counseling along the way. And you take that team and you lead that team, and you have consistent meetings with the management, consistent meetings with the leadership. You message all those things that you're doing, and you message all those great things that your team are doing. Because that first architecture project could take you 6 months to a year, but that's around the time you're going to be there. So those are going to be the kind of things you should do in those two kinds of companies.
Also, what are some key events and objectives you should aim to complete during this time?
Well, these are planning roles. Remember, these aren't doing roles. These are planning roles. So if I had a new software developer, I could pretty quickly stick them on coding. Might not do it on my first day, might not even do it on my first week, maybe the second week, but it's pretty easy to take a doer and put them on doing tasks because they know how to do them. Now, Michael, these are planning roles. So these key things that you're going to be doing are relationship development. You're going to have those relationships. It's hard to put a quantification on that. You're going to have to develop competency on the internal documents, which means reading that architecture repository, whether that be business architecture, whether it be network architecture, whether it be security architecture, whether it be application architecture, or the entire thing. You're going to have to meet it. You're going to have to meet those people. You're going to have to ask the people that are there to explain what exists, what they've done, and how it's going to work. You're going to have to. If it's an end user company like a bank or retailer. If it's a product company, they may send you to a bunch of silly certification trainings as well, and they'll pay. And why do they do that? Because it sounds really nice to be able to say, this person's certified in XYZ. It sounds so good on the surface, doesn't it? I mean, does it equate to competency? Probably not, but it sounds so good. So they're going to send you to that, and they're going to send you to their mandatory. So I think we covered it mostly in the first time before we brought it up, but that's actually what you're typically focused on.
From Cloud Doctor, how do you maintain a work-life balance in such a demanding field?
So, one second. So here's the key. I love what I do. So here's the way I view work-life balance. You hate what you do, so you can only do it for a certain number of hours. And when you come home, you do what you love. I don't think that's work-life balance at all. I think that's a horrible way to live. For me, I like to do what I love, work-wise. And when I get home, I'm refreshed. I like to do what I love. Now, the reality is, what do I love to do, honestly? I love to play with my cat. I love to practice yoga. And I love to spend time with my wife doing whatever she tells me to do with her. That's what I love doing, and I love going to the beach. But, for me, I love what I do. So I'd rather talk about work-life harmony. Work-life harmony is finding something you love, doing what you love, leading your life in a manner that you can afford to do what you love.
Right.
And you're not trapped. I remember when I lived in New Jersey and I worked on Wall Street. A lot of the people that I worked with had a $500,000, $1 million job, but they were literally trapped. I mean, it was pretty terrible. And here's what I mean. I mean, at the end of the day, they had their mortgages, which could be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month or more. By the time they were done buying their quarterly Rolexes and their boat payments and this, they were trapped. Yeah. They were truly trapped. For me, I was free. I had a little condo. I paid off my condo. I bought a Honda Accord, which I still think is the best car in the world. Paid for it in cash. I did what I loved. When I didn't like something, like I was an engineer for a little while, and when I don't want to ever do this again, I moved into architecture. I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid of it. So for me, that's really the key. Simplify your life. Now, do I get involved in more extravagant things than I would even care to? Yeah, that happens because, I get dragged into it and it's fine. But me personally, I could sit on my yoga mat. I can sit on the beach. I could honestly, and I'm totally happy. So there's that. So I'd say reduce your life to make it very simple. And that way, you're not a slave to work. You're not a slave to payments. You're not a slave to anything. And then find a job that you love. I love architecture. I mean, if anybody comes to my house, they can see how much I love it because I've got all these little things that I've designed and it's cool. I just love solving problems. So for me, it's not work. If I had to go back to network engineering, that would be work. And if I did that, then I'd be worried about work-life balance. But personally, I think do what you love. I think being an architect is great. People actually pay us to talk to people, to have conversations, and to give advice. I mean, we don't code, we don't configure. We're going to lunches, we're going to dinners, we're going to drinks, and we're talking to people. We're meeting people. We're developing relationships, and we're solving problems. For me, that's fun. So there's that. Now what do? I train people. When I've got a student that gets hired, it's like the celebration of a lifetime to me, even though it happens almost every day. Every day it's like, woohoo, look what we just did. We got another person a 6-figure plus job. And I remember what it was like when I started my career, how much of an impact that made on my life. So that's how I maintain work balance. How about you, Alonso?
Oh, same. I can't work in a place where I'm miserable. Work life, if you have to figure out how to be happy versus doing what you must, then you need to probably reconsider what you're doing with your life. Do what you want to do so that you can do it all the time. It's like I go home, kids, my wife, we have fun. I come to work, I get to talk with Mike, Chris, Mark, the team. We talk about building solutions. We talk about what's going on in the world and how it relates to your ability to be cloud architects or enterprise architects. I get a chance to work with David Linthicum. I get a chance to talk with a lot of people in the industry. That's fun. I get a chance to communicate solutions and provide options for people to enhance their lives. I think that's an awesome job. So do what you want to do, Cloud Doctor, and anyone else that's considering a cloud architect position. Think about, what do you like within the clouds? Networking, security, generative AI, big data. What would you like to do? Encompass that within your training, make that a part of your life. And that's going to eliminate that balance, because everything is going to be where and how you want it to be. Test SOC. What cloud security architect roles are impacted by the advancements in AI?
So all architect roles are impacted because it creates more jobs for us. It is damaging to engineers, but it's exciting to architects. And here's the reason why. Every piece of technology that we have, to the architect, is a new tool for us to transform business, because AI cannot have a conversation with the executives, because AI cannot lead a large team of people. AI can't sell. AI can't negotiate. It really can't do any of the work that we architects do. Now, AI can configure, but architects don't configure. AI can write a Terraform script, but architects don't write Terraform scripts. AI can write a Bash shell script for Linux or a Windows PowerShell script, but architects don't touch that stuff anyway, so it's not an issue to us. AI can write a Python script, but we don't code as architects. We design, present, and sell. So for us, it's there. Now, what changes is, what can we use AI for? Now we have AI in our firewalls. So, there's two ways that we could look at intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. With some of these cloud native firewalls, the kind that the cloud providers give you, what they do is they look for a signature. A signature is a known attack, and it looks for a signature database. What happens when it's a new attack that there's no signature for? They fall apart. So, right now we've got, and the alternative type of technology and pattern matching that a firewall could use for security is heuristics. Heuristics are the systems that look for patterns of behavior that are anomalies, and they act accordingly, kind of like you. So I remember when I first started traveling, and here's an example from the banks. I left my house in Princeton, New Jersey. I swiped my card at the airport in Newark, New Jersey. I swiped my card in Phoenix, because I was taking America West in those days. And then I swiped my card again in San Jose. That night, I got, my card was rejected, and I had to call the credit card company because they didn't think that was normal. Then I called my credit card company and I told them, by the way, I'm going to travel a lot. Then, you know what? They didn't bother me. And then one week, it was kind of interesting. I went from Princeton, New Jersey. I went to Panama. I came and went to San Jose, California. Then I went to London. Then I went to Dubai. And then they actually stopped my credit card. But they were more tolerant of it because they knew my pattern of behavior was being in 5 countries at a time. So the heuristics of firewalls get better. The ability of hackers to create better phishing scams and better scams are now aided by AI and the tools that we can use to mitigate it. The ability to go through large amounts of logs and SIEM systems and analyze the data and make better prediction out of there is there. So we've got AI enhancing the architect's job and defending it, and we've got AI enhancing the hacker's jobs and trying to hack. So it's just another tool that we can use. So another firewall, seriously, versus a next generation firewall. It's a new tool, which is better, but it's just another tool that we can use to SOC. It doesn't really impact us. Big impact on the engineers, though, because AI can do a lot of the engineering. AI can't replace a world-class engineer. It can't replace a top 10% engineer. It can't even replace a top 50% engineer. But AI can do a better job coding and configuring and infrastructure as code than the bottom 30% of engineers. So that's the scary piece. The best of the best are always going to be needed.
Yeah, definitely. And look at it this way, considering AI in the field and how AI, when it comes to generative adversarial networks, variational autoencoders, we have to understand that the source of that content needs to be very hygienic, meaning very clean, very reliable data. So we need to have robust security to protect that against those who would try to invade that space with negative misinformation, which dirties, the overall model. And like David Linthicum and Mike say a lot, garbage in, garbage out. I say you can't get dirty water, clean water out of a dirty faucet. The same thing with generative AI. You have to make sure those sources are clean and well protected and robust. So that's where a lot of security comes in. And that's another boon to the security field with generative AI and how it needs to be protected.
Absolutely.
Cloud Doctor, I am 41 years old and been in new vehicle sales for 18 years. Is it too late for me to transition into the architect space?
Cloud Doctor, absolutely not.
No.
I remember working with Robert Welch, who was 60 years old, and we got him his first cloud security architect job. We had worked with Sig Wolf, who was 63. It doesn't matter your age. I've worked with plenty of people that are 35, 45, 50. It doesn't matter. Now, I do like the sales experience that you have. New vehicle sales is not the easiest thing in the world.
No.
Now, someone really good in sales can find the customer's requirements, which is the same thing that we do. And someone that's really good in sales can match the customer with a solution that meets the requirements at a price that they can afford. So if you've been in new vehicle sales for 18 years and you didn't get fired in the first 6 months, like most people do, or the first year, you're probably pretty good at sales. And because that's really tough, and it's not something that people do for long periods of time, and those they can are typically very good. So you've already got some of it. So what do you got to do now? You got to learn the job. And you know what I always like to say is, and I've transitioned careers from healthcare to medicine. Actually, I was an EMT paramedic firefighter who became a nurse, who became an internal medicine nurse practitioner, who became a network architect, who became an enterprise architect, a business architect, you name it. So I change careers all the time. The key is to make sure there's a career you want, and it's to get the right training. And you have to get the right training to really get to your goals when you don't know. And here's the reason why. When you're brand new, you don't know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you need. So it's really hard for you to build yourself a framework for success if you don't know what you need. You want to be an architect, join our free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar on Thursday. At least we'll go over the role, we'll go over the skills and give you a list so you know what to learn. Learn with us, go to business school, whatever way you want to get it. I just want you to get hired. So there's that, Cloud Doctor. So no, it's fine as a background. It's never too late. You'll have to basically figure out the job you want. You have to get the training that you need. You'll have to do whatever studying you need to do to augment the training that you're getting. Mm-hmm. You'll have to practice your skills until you're hired, and then you'll get hired and you'll have a new job and you'll do it for the rest of your life and you'll enjoy it.
It's no different. I mean, you think about, you have to study the vehicles that you're selling. You talk about the curb weight, how fast it goes, the size of the engine, how many people does it seat, leather, moonroof, sunroof, warranties, and so forth. That's all the technical stuff. And you're utilizing 18 years of experience talking to a wide spectrum of young, old, different, varying demographics. So move that over to the cloud space. Instead of you talking about vehicles, you're talking about technical solutions based off of the needs of the business. You're going to be talking to a variety of different leaders from probably different industries, different age groups, different demographics. Maybe on a global side, you're talking to folks from international organizations or domestically based. It's the same concept. So I think that you would not have a problem at all. And then also, when it comes to your age group, people know that you're a seasoned person. They understand that you have a modicum of emotional intelligence. You know how to speak to people. You understand the seriousness of the job, and you're able to carry conversations. You think that those are going to be against you, but those are actual assets for you to be very successful. So we definitely encourage you to jump in, become the cloud architect you choose to be, and you will be successful. So if you have any other questions, we are here to help you all out. So I think Rock Diva has one that just came in.
And please ask your questions so we can assist you.
I have been a network engineer for many years and got laid off. What is the example of a transitional role that I can take to move into the direction of architecture?
Rock Diva, the next role that you would take to transition to architecture is an architect role.
Yep.
And Rock Diva, here's why this is so important. I don't know why people have it in their mind that they're going to go become a sysadmin, and then they're going to become an engineer, and then they're going to do something else, and they're going to be an architect. Your next job is an architect. You know, I remember when I started as a network engineer, Rock Diva, my CCIE number is 7417, so that should tell you about how much time I spent in networking, but based upon when I did that. So I was a network engineer, and poof, I was a network architect, and then I was an enterprise architect. So the real secret to go from where you're at to where you want to go is not the role. It's the training that you get to get there. So the question I have is, what kind of architecture are you interested in? Are you interested in network architecture, in which case I can tell you? Are you interested in cloud architecture? Are you interested in enterprise architecture? Or are you interested in AI architecture? Because they're very different. So let's say you're a network engineer now, and let's assume, I'll make some assumptions. You can tell me if I'm wrong in the chat box. And I don't like to make assumptions, but it's really hard. I'm assuming that you have a good understanding of routing and switching. Ideally, something like an interior gateway protocol, such as OSPF or intermediate systems to intermediate systems. And ideally, you've got some good, strong knowledge of BGP, along with some subnetting, some supernetting, some route aggregation, summarization, that kind of thing, some knowledge of route filtering, etc. Okay, so you said cloud architecture. So then I'm not going to go down the path of network architecture. So for cloud architecture, the good news is you're a percentage of the way there, because the cloud is nothing more than somebody else's network and data center in a virtualized environment. So what does this mean? It means the same private lines, the same VPNs, the same software-defined WANs, the same SASE frameworks for WAN connectivity. It means, and please join us on the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job on a Thursday. We'll go over it very well. It means that it means you're familiar with VLANs, VLAN tagging, and trunking. Again, one less skills that you don't need to understand. Ideally, you have a good knowledge of BGP and IP addressing and IP address planning. My hope is that you understand IPsec VPNs very well and other types of WANs, things you probably do. My hope is that you understand things like route reflectors and BGP, because there's a lot of things in the cloud like transit gateways and cloud hubs that feel a lot like BGP route reflectors. So assuming you have the networking down as a network engineer, and you probably do, the next thing to remember is you need to know the data center stuff now. What's the data center stuff? Well, it's servers and server virtualization. There's a chance you've worked with it already. Containers and container orchestration. If you haven't worked with containers, it's going to be pretty simple for you to understand, because basically containers are a whole lot like private VLANs. And I'm assuming you've worked with VLANs and private VLANs and that kind of thing. So there's the containers that you're dealing with. So then after that, you're going to need to learn the storage area networks. And who knows, maybe you know block storage, object storage, and file storage networks, and maybe you don't. If not, you'll learn them. Then you'll need to learn the databases, which are typically new for networking people, you know, the relational databases, the data warehouses, the NoSQL databases, if you will. Then you'll typically have to learn the business applications an organization needs to use to optimize their business. And then you'll typically need to know the security things. And chances are, you know, a little bit about IDS, IPS systems and firewalls if you're coming from a networking background. And of course, you'll need to know load balancers, reverse proxies. Now, that's the tech stuff. Now, we have to remember, Rock Diva, we architects don't build anything. We design things. So what does this mean? It means you're going to need a lot of business skills for the coordination of our job. So that means you're going to need to learn to sell. You're going to need to get very comfortable delivering presentations. You'll have to develop some executive presence to be taken seriously. You'll have to develop the CXO relevancy to be able to communicate to the C-suite and have them take you seriously. You'll have to build the business acumen. And when you do this, you'll be a cloud architect. You'll have a great cloud architect job. You'll earn well, and it'll be a job that you absolutely love. But tomorrow, we're going to have a How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, and it'll be on Zoom. And if you come to this webinar, we'll go over the role, we'll talk about what we do, we'll talk about the actual skills, we'll talk about how to jump past HR so you don't get auto-rejected, those kinds of things by HR. And after that, guess what? You'll be able to ask us questions. We'll be able to answer them and ask you questions on chat to truly help you, and it's completely free. Plus, we have a document on how to get your first cloud architect job. I'll ask my team to pop there as well.
Also, Rock Diva had mentioned, Mike, they're currently building a private cloud in their garage to get experience architecting different styles of networks. Is this a good direction?
Okay, Rock Diva. So there is benefit for this, and I'm going to tell you there's some things what's good about it. I'm also going to tell you something else. Rock Diva, you will never learn how to architect anything by building anything. Never. You will get very good at building. Now, building a private cloud is valuable, and I have my students do it too, and here's why I do it. When I have someone that ever asked, when I have somebody that asks me, for example, if I've ever done something, I want to be able to say I've done something. So I have my students build private clouds. You will learn some degree on an OpenStack cloud and Nutanix cloud, but it will teach you how to build. It's going to teach you how to build. Now, I want to make sure you understand this. Knowing how to build will not teach you how to design. And that's the reason why the people that build bridges don't ask to design them. It's the same reason why people that fly the airplanes don't get asked to design the airplanes. It's the same reason that the mechanics that fix the airplane engines don't get asked to fly the plane. Building teaches you to build. Architecture is systems on how to design. So you're going to have to take architecture training. There's a reason Cisco takes the CCDE and the CCIE, and it's in a different direction. The CCIE is a presentation. I'm sorry, the CCIE is a lab, the CCD is a presentation. So Rock Diva, you're going to need someone to train you in architecture. And you're going to need someone to teach you how to map those people, processes, and technologies to a business issue. You're just going to have to. So I would say, come, you can learn from us. The alternatively is you can go to school. You can go to school and get an MBA to learn the business components. You really could. You can go out there and read finance textbooks and business textbooks and accounting textbooks and marketing textbooks. Now, the reality is the textbooks will cost more than our course, but you've got to get to somewhere. But in order to learn how to architect, you need to learn how to architect. It was one of the more interesting things when I first took my network architect job out of engineering. I had a CCI and I knew absolutely nothing. And the reason I knew absolutely nothing was because in the CCI, I got really good at configuring BGP and OSPF and EIGRP and redistributing routes. I was really good at it. I was. And then the first client told me about their weighted average cost of capital, and it was a buy versus rent model, and I went, uh-oh. And then I was all excited. I knew the CCA. I thought it was going to be good. And then I was dealing with a financial application that was spewing so much broadcast traffic that the router CPUs kept rebooting. Because the CPUs were pegged at 100%, the routing protocols would crash, and nobody had any idea why that would have ever occurred until we looked at the architecture. So and there were things like that. Then all of a sudden we had these low latency algorithmic trading systems that these math PhDs kind of designed. And how do we create a network for that? What did we actually have to do to reduce milliseconds of latency outside of the network? And again, none of this was kind of covered in the how to build, which was the CCIE. So I had to learn from scratch network architecture. Architecture is completely different than engineering. The same reason you can't learn how to design a hotel by building a hotel. Architects go to college and learn it. You have to learn. Somebody is going to have to teach you. They're going to have to teach you. Or you're going to have to take design training somewhere, or you're going to have to read a lot of books on design, like a lot of them. But you're going to have to learn to design versus build. I still encourage you to build the private cloud. It'll be something great to put on your resume, and it'll be a great way to show that you're more motivated, energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the job. It will show that you've gone above and beyond as opposed to someone that's set up an S3 bucket. So I have my people do it. I think it's a great exercise, wonderful. But it's a wonderful hands-on engineering thing that you do. It's not an architectural design thing.
Cloud Station. Looking back, what would you have done differently, Mike, in your career, and what lessons can others learn from your experience?
Cloud Station, that's a good question. If there's any mistake that I made, it was I stayed too close to the tech for too long. When I first went into the tech, I loved it so much that I became a CCIE. And then in my first network architect job, I was just so focused on the tech, because in those days, the routers had almost no capacity. The routers would have like a 20 megahertz CPU. And we had to do all this kind of with like 16 megabytes of RAM. And we were always running out of RAM. So it was like, how could we summarize routes and what kind of performance tuning? And it took so much engineering that I fell in love with the technology as an architect. And I'll tell you, in my first architect role, I was pretty darn technical, way too technical. And then I had my second architect role. And again, I was too technical. And what happened is I got no respect and I didn't seem to earn a lot. And then I guess I would say I was about 4 years into my career, and I had a manager, and he did me the biggest favor in the world, Cloud Station. And he said, Mike, he said, look, you're a solutions architect, $150,000 sales engineer. He said, you could be more. He said, you got to stop focusing on certifications. You got to focus on all this tech wizardry. He said, it's not going to get you any further. He said, do you want to rise? Do you want that $300,000 enterprise architect job? And please tell me. It was a long time ago, more than 20 years ago. And it was good for my family. And he said, it's the impact you can make to your clients. Your impact is based upon your business acumen, the number of people you can bring with you, your leadership skills, your ability to exercise influence, your knowledge of business, your ability to connect to executives. And I went, okay. And then I went and got an MBA, did about $100,000 of other training that thankfully the company sent me for. Poof, my salary doubled. And then I was able to coach people, and they had much better and better and better careers. So I would say I stayed too close to the tech for too long. But I loved it. So it cost me financially. It cost me career time-wise. But I loved it. So if I lost 2 years having fun with the tech, that's okay too.
Diggleman, while at Microsoft with my goal to be a security architect, who should I get to know better?
Dingleman, and I know you're super smart, more business acumen, more leadership skills, more executive presence. You focus on those things. You being you're super smart, you do what you do, and everybody's going to see it. But I'd probably start meeting with the management, your manager's manager, the senior managers, the directors, and start getting a hold of the managers. Show them what you can do. Volunteer to be part of projects on their team, and wow them with your communication skills, your leadership skills, your sales skills, your executive skills. And Dingleman, I encourage you to finish the education that you were doing on the business side and some of those architecture pieces. I think it'll take you very far because you're very, very smart. I know who you are.
We definitely know who you are and what you're capable of. Great. And I couldn't have said it yep. better with my, so. Michael Russell, what are some questions you could ask to really understand and uncover a client's challenges? And how would you handle a client you may not be so forthcoming with that information?
So it's going to change with every client because they're all going to be in different businesses. So how do you get information from people? And then I'll give you some examples. You make sure that you're non-judgmental. You make sure you're emotionally intelligent. You ask questions softly, and you make it very clear to the people that you're information gathering for their benefit, not for judgments, not for right or wrong. All you care about is how to make them more successful, and the only way to make them more successful is with the right information. Thankfully, Michael, I actually learned this in my healthcare career. At one point, I had a pretty sensitive job there where I had to be more emotionally intelligent and softer than you could possibly imagine. One day in class, if you ask, I'll tell you about that job that I got suckered into for about 6 months. But it taught me how to ask questions very gently, very softly. So that's the key to get information. Know the right question, be open-minded, make sure it's clear There's no judgment anywhere coming from you, how, where, and why. So, okay, there's that. So the next question is, you're going to have to understand one client. And it's going to really change. So you've got one client right now. Let's say they're in the transportation industry. What's going on in the transportation industry that might affect it? Do we have increased fuel prices? Yes. And how does that affect their ability to purchase fuel? Now, if the fuel prices are up, does that affect that organization's profitability? Do they have the price elasticity to raise rates? Or do they not have the price elasticity where their organization's operating costs went up and therefore their profitability declined? And if that's the case, what does that organization need to do about it? Is there some way they can enhance a new service to increase their revenue? Do they need to involve some automation to get rid of some back office people in order to make them be able to tolerate those increased fuel pricing rates? Now, if it's fuel pricing, where is it coming from? Is it gasoline? Is it diesel? Is it jet fuel? Now, what's going on market-wise? Are there OPEC production cuts that are affecting them? Are there legal things that are going to be affecting them? What is the legislation? Is, for example, drilling going to be allowed in certain parts of the United States again, which would increase supply, which would therefore reduce pricing? Or are there new legislations affecting them, or things that would be more related to green or environmental things that would make it much harder to mine the fuel sources, which will raise the prices of them? And if so, where does that organization see them? So if you see it's one question will build on another, which will build on another, which will build on another. So prior to going to a client, you have to learn about the client itself. You got to do some reconnaissance. If you're dealing with, most of the time as cloud architects, we deal with public clients, there's the good news. They fill out their 510Ks, their 10Ks, for example, which give you information about their finances. They've got their balance sheets that are open to see. They've got their financial statements. You can search that organization and research the competitors. You can see what industry analysts are saying about them. You can see what the competitors are saying about them. You can see what their customers are saying about them. And Michael, doing all that reconnaissance before you meet the client, you have an idea about the client. And that you can use to generate some of the questions that you're going to ask them ahead of time. Because you're asking questions based upon the actual condition that's over there. So why do I say it depends? If Alonzo came to me and said, Michael, my throat hurts, I'd ask him about his throat. Now, if Alonzo said that his chest hurt, we'd be having a very different conversation. And not only would I be asking questions, I'd be sticking an EKG on him. I'd be doing all kinds of stuff, drawing some blood on him, because the different situation is going to change it. Two banks are going to have a completely different environment. Two consulting companies are going to have different niches, different business processes, different strengths, different weaknesses. And when we start looking at all these things, I hope that kind of makes sense. I hope that's what we're talking about. I hope that makes sense to you. Michael, if you've got another question, let me know. So at this point, if you've got questions, let us know. Otherwise, Alonzo and I have plenty of things to do. In the meantime, I'm going to invite everybody to get the How to Become a Cloud Architect career guide, completely free. It's in the chat box. I'm also going to invite everybody to the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar tomorrow at 1 p.m. We'll go over the cloud architect role. We'll talk about what we do. You can ask us questions. We'll tell you the skills you need. We'll tell you how to bypass HR so you don't get auto-rejected unless you've got 500 years of experience, 50 Olympic gold medals, and experience in 14,000 people's unrelated job. We'll get to teach you how to do that. And next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're going to do an AWS Advanced Networking. And we're not like others. We're not people that just take a certification exam and are going to teach you. We have 3 Cisco certified internet experts, a CCNP on staff, and a networking staff to teach this free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp that has over 60 years combined experience. So we're going to make it fun for you. And we'll make it easy to understand because we understand the content because we're all networking people around here and we absolutely love networking. So if there's no more questions, it was nice seeing you this afternoon, and I will be back to see you soon.
Take care, everyone.